What did you make of the transparency we're getting through the former Twitter? How are we seeing the actual senators trying to speak to Sam Bankman-Fried himself?
You know, we're seeing everyone is using Twitter. We see Maxine Waters from the House Financial Services Committee is increasingly used that to put pressure on Sam to testify. We've also seen Senator Toomey came out with his own tweet today that said, Sam, if you do show up at the House committee's hearing, you better show up at our hearing the next day. So, you know, everyone's using social media.
It's kind of painful. I mean, I think, was it Susie put in best himself is like, he's like, no, I can't watch movies. They're not exciting enough. I'm just addicted to crypto Twitter. And aren't we all? And Sonali Basak is key among them. Just talk to us about not only what you're going to be following through Twitter, but what you're going to be following, Sonali, on the ground, because you're going to be there. You're going to be expecting testimony from who? And are they the right kind of people to be giving testimony?
That's an interesting question, because there are a lot of academics that are being called upon the House and the Senate hearings. Remember, there's only one set of small witnesses posted on the Senate committee site. We don't have everything from the House itself at all yet. And remember, Sam Bankman-Fried said he's willing to testify. Will he show up and testify? There was no subpoena up till this point as well. So a lot of questions about whether he'll be there in person. Remember, he does say that what he is trying to do is address not only FTX and the pathway to return value to shareholders, but also what led to the crash. We'll be looking at what he says versus what he has said before, as well as he says his own failings. He also said he doesn't have access to much of his own data, personal or professional. So you have to wonder why he doesn't have that access and what kind of data he will not be able to allegedly provide to the lawmakers as they question him if he makes it there to the Hill next week. So again, the House on Tuesday, the Senate on Wednesday, and remember, the senators have also been seeking to try to get him there as well, but they did not reply to them in time for the testimony so far. So logistically, let's see if he makes it to both.
Team, Sonali has just gone to the exact point that I want to bring up. In fact, super producers, let's bring his tweet back up again and look at what he said. Because what I'm not understanding, Allyson, is what would we learn from SBF on Capitol Hill that we haven't already learned in the many appearances and communications that he's made in the last 7 to 10 days?
That's a great question. And I honestly feel like we're probably going to hear a lot of the same things. You know, he'll say that he didn't intentionally mean to commit any sort of fraud. He'll probably talk about the fact that maybe he made some managerial mistakes. So I'm sort of expecting it to be along the same lines. I'm actually maybe more interested in hearing the testimony of John J. Ray, who is the current CEO, kind of helping with the restructuring of FTX. You know, he has access to all of this data. He's sifting through these records, though he's told us that they're not very good. So, you know, I'm hoping that maybe we get some extra details from what we've seen in the bankruptcy filing so far.
Actually, Sonali, new headlines actually continue to come through about this story. I saw a tweet or a thread of tweets from the editor-at-large of the block. Could you tell us what the story is there, please?
Yeah, you are referring to the tweet thread by Frank Chaparro, otherwise known as FinTech Frank, who 4 days ago released an almost 2-hour podcast speaking with SBF about what had happened here. But really what had happened is he said he did not know, and many employees at the block did not know, and felt really put in the dark here, because what happened was an executive, the CEO of the block, which is supposed to be an independent news site related to crypto that was bought out by management about a year or so ago. Yeah, absolutely got it. Look at that tweet right there. So what they are finding out now is that CEO had taken personal loans through a entity here that did not disclose that SBF had given loans to the CEO that ended up being part of what helped that executive lead to the buyout. So listen, the CEO has stepped down. You are seeing the employees reeling from this. They are saying they did not know at all. This was really found out within the past couple of days. And as I was saying, just 2 days ago, they had interviewed SBF himself.
I know it can. I mean, it can seem like inside baseball when journalists are talking about other journalists, but your heart does have to go out to people who feel completely undone, not only by their sector collapsing, the industry that they've grown to love collapsing, but then their own CEO seemingly catching them completely off guard and blindsiding them. I'm sure there's more to come from that. But overall, Allyson, the transparency we're going to get from a regulatory perspective, from a lawmaker's perspective, and I asked it to Sonali earlier, I ask it to you now, the people that they're going to have in front of them giving evidence, I've seen some talk on Twitter again that people who feel very legitimate in this space haven't been asked, and some people who have been asked to speak perhaps aren't deemed so legitimate. Just talk to us about who we expect to hear from.
So on the House side, the only person that's actually listed as a witness so far is John J. Ray, so the current CEO of FTX. On the Senate side, we have a pretty small list as well. One of them is a law professor who specializes in sort of financial regulation and new technologies. And then the other one is Ben McKenzie. So if you watched the OC, then you would recognize that name. He was Ryan on the OC. He's more recently come out as a very anti-crypto skeptic and sort of crypto commentator. But a lot of people were a little surprised to see that name on the list.